Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul Aviva Premiership Season Preview. How are you doing? Thank you very much for joining me. Yes, the Aviva Premiership season is about to kick off and we're back into the European season and another few months of rugby. I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and so I'm going to take you through first how last season finished and then I'll talk about what transfers they've had during the season, and then I'll say how I think the table is going to finish, all on my special whiteboard here that I'll spin around and tease you with how I see things going to be. So last season the table finished with Wasps at the top of the table on the same points as Exeter Chiefs. The two of them met in the final, where Exeter Chiefs came out on top, having been the runners-up the previous year in that game. Saracens and Leicester Tigers rounded out the finals positions, and it was like that for quite a long time. It was pretty obvious who was going to be there. Bath and Harlequins then filled out top six, getting automatic places into the European Champions Cup, with Bath going well at the beginning of the season and fading as injuries took their toll. Saints then came in seventh, got into the European Champions Cup's playoffs and earned themselves a place in that competition as well, beating Stade Francais, I think it was from memory, let's go and make sure we get that the right way around. Anyway, I can't remember, it doesn't matter too much. Then the teams that go into the Challenge Cup were Newcastle Falcons, who did play around in that top half of the table for quite a bit of the season and surprised us all. Gloucester, Sale Sharks, Worcester Warriors, and obviously Bristol got relegated and have been replaced by London Irish in this coming season. So that's how things finished off last year. There have been a whole bunch of changes over the off-season. We've had new coaches, we've had players leave, we've had players join, we've had players retire, and all of that kind of stuff. So let's run through the teams in the order that we saw them finish, so I don't give away where I think teams are going to end up afterwards. So starting off with Wasps, who topped the table. One of the things I said about this team last year in the preview was that they'd lost players. I didn't see them gelling quickly enough and doing that well. Players such as Piatow, etc. they lost, and yet they still managed to come through that and play well again. This time, again, they're losing players. Curtly Beale, Frank Halai are leaving and going on about that. Little comment there in the live cast. What about the comeback from the All Blacks? It was fantastic. Go check out the #Rugby Chat podcast. Myself and Ashwin had quite a long chat actually, straight after the game to catch up on my views on that. It was a cracker. So Wasps, as I say, have lost players this season. I also kept quite a lot of their players as well, though. Looking at the players that are coming in, a couple of names there, but nothing overly special. I think it's going to be much about the squad they had and progressing with them more so. Relatively low turnover for Wasps, only 7 players coming in. So you've got to think about that as has been. There's got to be a steady ship, same coaching staff, and so look at them pushing on. Even though they have lost a few players like Beale and Halai, they have still got a good set of backs. Exeter Chiefs are a team that we all know does small amounts of turnover in the market and promotes from within. And that's pretty much what we see yet again. We've got 6 players being brought in. They normally bring in up to about 8 players a season. And then they've also got Sam Simmons has been promoted from the academy. If we look at who they've lost during the off-season, Dave Lewis, Hayden Thomas for a couple of scrum halves there. But apart from that, Jeff Parling, obviously ex-England international, Tom Johnson, but he didn't play that much last season, so not really much of a loss on that side. Jeff Parling's going to be the one that they're really going to need to replace. Coming in, you've got Matt Kovacic and Nick White. So that's the scrum half position sorted, because Nick White plus the 2 young guys from the academy are going to fill that gap quite happily. And then we've got Willem van der Sleers, sorry about my South African pronunciation there, coming in hopefully to fill in Jeff Parling's slot in the second row. Again, Matt Kovacic, obviously a name we've seen in and around there. Another one of those players who's just below England level, so will be there for the whole time, whole of the season, and it's a typical kind of good extra signing. And a few there that maybe from Rotherham Tigers, Jersey Reds, again, going shopping in the Rugby Championship like we've seen Exeter do in the past. So a lot of continuity from Exeter, and we should see them pushing at the top of the table yet again. Saracens missed out on the Premiership title, but they did win the European Champions Cup and still are going to be considered the best side in Europe. I remember looking at them post Rugby World Cup. They had something like 3 or 4 players coming in. This season, a bit more turnover, obviously with and perhaps a few more names leaving as well that you'd kind of recognise. Chris Ashton's there. But you got Kelly Brown, Neil de Kock, retiring. Jim Hamilton also there. Patrice de Police has also left. So a few more names that you'd recognise perhaps, which you'd expect because they have been champions and at the top for a long time. Coming in, Callum Clark will do a very good job for them. Liam Williams is clearly the headline there. You've got Will Skelton coming up from Australia, plus promoting 3 players from their academy. So some good recruitment there to add to what is already a strong squad. And Saracens will definitely be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. Bath, now Blackadder's been there and will have his first proper pre-season, so expect things to be much more in his image. Also, he's had the chance to recruit as well. So Blackadder, obviously with a strong pedigree in Super Rugby, did very well at Bath initially during the season, but they struggled with depth. And if we look at who they're losing, obviously George Ford is the highlight there. But also with Adam Hastings as well going, that's 2 fly halves that they're losing. Apart from that, really enough. I mean, we'll recognise some recognisable names, but perhaps been around for quite a long time now. Dave Denton, Daniel Bowden, I recognise obviously because he's from New Zealand. Robbie Fruin as well, but not players that necessarily were that influential for Bath. Coming in, Sam Underhill and Freddie Burns are going to be the 2 big names that come in there. Now, Freddie Burns is ex-England international, and if he can get back to form, will be a very good signing for them because he'll be there all season. I know some people think that Bath have got the better deal out of the swap with Leicester around fly halves with George Ford going the other way because they will have him there all season. And Sam Underhill obviously went on tour with England this summer, so a good signing there as well. But again, another element of continuity here. The players that they've brought in are from places like Bristol, Evervale, Dragons, London Irish. It's not big names outside of those 2, and will be more squad players, which is what Bath really need because of that. Because they really suffered last season with those injuries. But again, another team with continuity that we should be looking at being towards the top. And I've gone and got myself in the wrong order to miss that Leicester Tigers, didn't I? Now, Leicester Tigers, the difference here is going to be they've had a new coach come in as well. They also had all that coach turmoil and had what was considered a bad season for them last season, and yet they came 4th. Now, that's one hell of a record if you're considered a bad season and you still end up in the finals, which gives you an idea of the expectation around Leicester Tigers. Players that are going out, Owen Williams and Freddie Burns. So again, they've lost both of their first choice fly halves. JP Peterson didn't really do that much there last season. Let's be honest, I don't think will be a big loss. So there's been those are going to be the players and also Ed Slater obviously going off to Gloucester, a big club, long-term club stalwart. Coming in, George Ford, obviously we've talked about, actually along with his brother as well, Joe Ford. The other one is obviously Johnny May, who is coming in as well from Gloucester, and will give them some pace out wide, which is something that they perhaps probably will need. It's going to be interesting with the new coach there. Not someone that I've rated. I think he did a great job over in Australia, but we'll see. To me, it feels like they've gone and lost 2 very good coaches and brought in someone who isn't quite up at their standard. But who am I to judge? We'll see how that pans out. So down in 6th place was Harlequins. If I get the list up here. Obviously, under a new coach last year, with O'Connor leaving, they'd had a couple of poorish seasons leading into that since they'd been champions. and this time squeezed into the top 6. Now, as I said, Leicester Tigers considered to have a bad season. Bath had a lot of injuries and faded, weren't expecting a good season. So I don't think it was a vintage season last year, and there's quite a few teams in that middle pack who were kind of a bit so-so. Harlequins and Northampton Saints spring to mind in that sort of side of things. Quite a clear out, and for me the big thing around them is going to be Nick Evans retiring. He has been there for so long, has been their franchise player for a long time. How are they going to cope with a new player at 10? And when you look at their squad, the 10s they've got don't fill you with a lot of confidence. I mean, Richard Jackson also left and has gone back up north to Glasgow Warriors, someone who feels like a bit of an unfulfilled talent who hasn't perhaps injuries got in the way of him. Francis Salai from Munster, perhaps probably their top signing. Also a couple of players from Montpellier and from the Bulls as well. But it doesn't look like, again, they're going to be reliant on their England players. And when those England players are away during the November internationals and the Six Nations, I think they're going to struggle again another season like that. At least this year, it's the second year of this coaching setup, so we should see an improved performance around that. The next, Saints, another team that really sort of struggled last year. And when you look at their squad, there's been a big clear out. Something like up to about 15 players have either have left or been released. The big names there, Callum Clark and Lewis Pickamoles from the back row, are both going to be missed. JJ Hanrahan, another player that I think is going to be missed by the Northampton Saints. When we look at who's coming in for them, Rob Horne and Piers Francis from this neck of the woods, and quite a lot of players from overseas, coming from the Stormers, the Sharks, Western Force, the Blues, and the Waratahs. So a lot of Southern Hemisphere influence coming in, which is kind of interesting to see how that will change their style of play. Piers Francis, someone I've seen quite a bit at the Blues, who obviously went on tour with England. Personally, I don't think he's international class, but we'll see. But a good club player in that 10-12 channel. Can they get the best out of George North? Can they spread things a bit wider this year? We'll have to wait and see. Losing Lewis Pickamoles is going to be a big loss for them, and also Callum Clark around that back row. So I think they could struggle at the breakdown this season. Next up, when we were running through last year, Newcastle Falcons. And Newcastle Falcons really, I had them down to be relegated last year, and they really outperformed that expectation. Were in the top 6 for a lot of the season, but then it just faded out. If we look at the signings that they've got coming in, Maxime Josh Matavesi, DTH Vandermeer. We've got some quality guys, and obviously Toby Flood as well coming in. So there's some quality players coming in to this side, and I think that's going to help lift them. When you look at who's left, I mean, a couple of players have gone to Wasps, but the rest are all heading to the Championship really, or retiring. So they haven't really lost that much quality from the side, and they are definitely improving that quality. So they'll be able to have some good continuity to start off with and feed those players in. And I think we could see Newcastle pushing on this season. Moving on, then we had Gloucester. Now Gloucester had that public resignation of their head coach via Twitter last season, and this season they've obviously brought in the Lions director of rugby or head coach to come in. So this is going to be a transfer season, a transition season for Gloucester. They've lost Greg Laidlaw and James Hook, or they've left anyway. So that's their half-back pairing gone. Matt Kovacic, we've also already talked about, has also gone. A lot of players have left to go to Bristol. And again, there's another side that's lost something like, or clearing out something like 12, 15 players, which is quite a lot when you think about it. Players coming in, they've promoted quite a few from the academy, with 3 coming in from the academy. Ed Slater is going to be very good for them in that pack. Jason Woodward had a good season at Bristol, so him coming in and losing Johnny May isn't going to be too much of a problem in that back 3. Owen Williams coming in to help out at 10 is going to be interesting as well. But having lost that half-back pairing, it's going to be interesting to see how quickly the decision-making group combined with a brand new coach as well for this. So personally, I think it's going to be a rebuilding year for Gloucester, and don't expect too much from them. We seem to be saying that a lot about Gloucester, is that rebuilding years. Hopefully this time they've got someone here who's come in, who was given time at the Lions, put the structures in place, and did make them grow well in South Africa. If he's given time, he should be successful. Next we have Sale Sharks, who, again, perhaps we thought we would do a bit better than they did last year. Never really looked in danger of getting relegated, but we're down at that kind of end. And again, they've had there's another team that's had a big clear out, 15 plus players, and we've lost pretty much with people like Mike Phillips and Peter Stringer going. They've lost quite a lot of experience in there. But if you look at the rest of the players, most of them again heading towards the Championship. Not a massive loss. Perhaps Kieran Longbottom is the only one who's heading to Saracens. But apart from that, not players that they'd be perhaps too worried about losing. Coming in, they've promoted 5 people from the academy, which is a good sign. And Faf de Klerk and James O'Connor are going to be that linchpin 9-10 combo you'd expect for them this season. That them along with Josh Strauss as well from Glasgow Warriors is going to be a big decision as to how well they go this season. If those guys can settle in quickly, then they should go well. James O'Connor, lots of question marks around him, let's be honest. Has been a naughty boy in the past. Recently he got caught as part of that whole drugs issue in Paris. So got to be some fairly big question marks around him. Can Steve Diamond get him under control like he did get Cipriani under control? We'll have to wait and see. So big question marks there, but good potential about them as well. Heading on down then, Worcester Warriors. Now here's a team that we have to be worried about. I think it was something like 30 players or 20 players had left the club. There's a massive clear out at Worcester. Players like Ryan Lamb heading over to La Rochelle, plus a lot of players being released as well. This is going to come down a lot, and one of the things we said last season was how reliant they were on Hugard. I think that's also going to be the same situation. How much are they going to get hold of him because he's away with South Africa at the moment? Ben Teo, they're also going to miss him as well. So they're going to miss a lot of whilst other teams may lose more players when it comes to internationals, these guys are losing key players when it comes to internationals. Peter Stringer has come in for a part-time, or at least for the first part of the season to help cover that, and is a very good signing. Yes, he's going towards the end of his year, but he's going to bring a lot of experience and control for them. But apart from that, the other signings don't look particularly inspiring, and we're going to have to see how they go. I'm a little bit concerned for Worcester this year, I must say, because I just don't. Whilst they have promotion from the academy, which is a good sign, they have had a big turnover, and there aren't those big, and perhaps the quality coming in isn't so great. So finally, the promoted side in London Irish, who bounced straight back up from the Championship. Only releasing 6 players, so not a big turnover, and all of them, bar one, heading to other Championship clubs, which should be expected. If we look at who's coming in, though, it really is a United Nations of players. We've got Scot, Georgian, Australian, Fijian, Italian, South African, Samoan, and one Englishman coming in. It really is going to be a matter of how well do these guys gel early doors, because they've got quite a few players coming in. Petrus de Police, for example, from Saracens, Luke McLean from Treviso, Sci-Fi Agate from Brumbies. There's people here who can play. There's no two ways about it. The problem is they haven't played together. And for the promoted team, they need a good start. They need some momentum. They need to get some points on the board. And that has got to be London Irish's big question mark. How are they going to go in those first few games? So that's how I see they've all done over the summer. So here we go. Here is how I see them finishing at the end. Yes, I'm going safe with Saracens coming top. Yes, they are the European champions, and it's going to come down to how well they manage, I guess, their players and international call-ups. Exeter, there's not been much change there. They should continue to push on. Same with Wasps as well. So I expect those three to be the top group. I think the team that's going to join them is Bath. So this is Blackadder's first proper full season. It's the first time he's got his squad together, and I think that will be the top four. I do think the table is going to be split into three groups. We'll have that top four, perhaps not in that order, but and then we're going to have another group of 6 teams, and then we'll have the bottom 2. Is how I see it. Next, this mixed middle group of 6 teams, I think is going to be, and this is the kind of order. I think Newcastle are going to push on and impress us again. We're going to have Leicester are going to slip a bit as their new coach settles in. Sale, it's going to come down to how well those players in that decision group do, but they could go well this season. Harlequins, Northampton Saints, and Gloucester I think are going to be that middle group of 6. That's the order I think they'll finish in, but as I say, that could be a lot of that comes down to how well a team's going to integrate new players, how well a new coach is going to be able to set their systems in place. Those 6 could really be in any order. And then I think Irish and Worcester are going to be the 2 sides that are going to be fighting it out at the bottom for relegation. We'll have to see how that goes. Personally, I think Worcester are the ones that are looking to be in a bit of trouble. I'm always up for good rugby chats. Please do leave comments and let me know your thoughts around how you see the Aviva Premiership going next season. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletter, link above on Twitter, down below on YouTube, and please give it the old thumbs up on YouTube and share this with your friends. I will be back later today with my Mitre 10 Cup predictions, back tomorrow with my Aviva Premiership Round 1 predictions, and predictions also for the Currie Cup, NRC, and all the other competitions that are going on at the moment. There is just an absolute feast of rugby.